All right, welcome folks to Jimmy and Neil Have Problems, where we talk about our problems. Today's problem is we can heat things quickly, but can't cool them quickly. So we have, a microwave, but we don't have, I don't even know what I would call something that cools things quickly. Do you have an idea,
Freeze a
Neil?
wave.
A freeze-a-wave. Look out for the freeze-a-wave coming to
Or,
market
or
soon.
we could have it be Incredibles theme and have it be the Frozone.
Yes, that should be it, the Frozone.
Yeah,
So
and
our
we can
example,
we'll have Samuel L. Jackson be the marketing person, and he'll wear, but in the flesh he'll wear the Frozone costume.
that would be legendary. I wish you
Yeah.
would just do that with us. That's a collab. Once again, like the Stinky Candle Co., we're waiting on some brand sponsorships and partnerships. The people will come. The
Mhm.
Frozone cools things quickly. So I don't know. I've always thought with this one that it might just be a basic physics problem. Like cooling things is really hard.
Yeah.
What are the levers involved here? I don't really. You're very into thermodynamics. I don't really understand it.
Just please never say that. I took thermodynamics. I took heat transfer. Yeah.
Few more classes than I did.
Yes. Yeah, but not into it. Let's be clear
Oh,
about that one.
okay.
Mhm. Yeah, no. I mean, anytime you heat things, like anytime heat is involved in a problem, it makes it very, that dwarfs other energies often. Um, and uh, yeah, the way we kind of get around that is that we have, energy stored in bonds, like atomic bonds,
Yeah.
right?
And
And
that's
then
how you cool things?
no, that's how we heat things, right? So like
Oh,
our
yep.
natural
Giving
gas,
a
we
break. Yep.
burn that, and
Yep.
the chemical reaction that is happening is where we're getting that, those large amounts of energy.
Yeah. Like chemical
Whereas,
reactions.
yeah, I guess there are, endothermic reactions, but I don't know, like, is there a cheap endothermic reaction?
Yes. So the lever is like the type of reaction, right? So we have
Yep.
goal is to find a cheap, safe endothermic reaction, which endothermic just means it like
It's
takes in more energy from the environment than it puts
yeah,
out.
yeah, like the opposite of combustion.
Yeah, the
And then
opposite. That's a good way of putting it. Yeah.
and then the another problem is um that so much of what we eat has water as a base, right? And
Water's
when
really
water
hard.
freezes, it becomes a much better insulator, right? So in the process of cooling things, you make it harder to cool things.
These cooling thing. Yeah, you make it harder to cool things. So this is starting to make sense why this isn't solved.
Yeah. And then
We just,
some
yeah.
of the easy um like you so a bright spot is liquid nitrogen, and sometimes
Yeah.
you go to demonstrations and yada yada yada. Cryofluids are a quite dangerous, and then also kind of expensive. There are some ways you can get around that, like dry ice, you can buy at a grocery store, but again, it's not very good at heat transfer. um yeah,
Yeah, it's just
but then
cold.
yeah, it's just cold, but because it's off gassing, it's going directly from a solid to a gas. That gas insulates the solid. Something you can put that in a liquid that doesn't freeze or until a temperature lower than dry ice, such as rubbing alcohol, something that's also pretty available.
Yeah, that's actually, rubbing alcohol is a great one.
But you don't want to be soaking your food in rubbing alcohol.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and there's a limit to how cold it's gonna get.
Yeah,
Rubbing alcohol slash acetone. Like,
well, that's gonna get to like negative 170 Fahrenheit.
oh, that's pretty good.
Yeah, dry ice is really cold,
Well, but
but
what about rubbing alcohol?
like, and rubbing alcohol's freezing point is below the temperature of dry ice.
Okay. Well, but like if it's so I'm thinking of like when you put rubbing alcohol on your hands, it feels cold.
Oh, yes,
How
you've got.
cold is that really getting? So if I were to put rubbing alcohol
Oh,
all over my food,
I mean,
how
there's
cold
the
would it make my food?
um. I mean, do you remember in the intro to engineering lab where we had a cup of acetone and a thermistor and a fan blowing over it?
Yeah,
And we
I
dropped that
forgot about that.
acetone to about 30 degrees, I believe.
Which in the end, not, I mean,
No,
that's cold, but that's not freezer cold. Like
yeah,
freezer
that's,
cold is 0.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So we have this problem of we have some things
Well,
that are available and somewhat safe, but they don't really get things cold
I
enough.
wonder, like, so, in an oven, we now
Yeah.
have, convection ovens, which are circulating the air. So it heats things up more quickly.
Yeah.
What if we had, convection freezers where, it's got big fans that are just circulating the air so that it, cools things instead of just going in there and, having stagnant air. Because then you facilitate convection as well as conduction and radiation.
And I think an interesting thing is you talked about water being a part of this that makes it really hard. I
Mhm,
think there's like a dual. So this is actually another bright spot in the Andes. So we have I'm trying to think. I guess it would be the Incas to thank for like beef jerky because they innovated this system for drying and preserving food, which was you bring it up to the top of the mountain where it's cold and dry.
mhm,
It sucks the moisture out and cools it. So that was
mhm,
a way essentially of freeze drying. Yeah.
mhm. Yeah.
So freeze drying food. Well, so like removing moisture. So what you could do in an interesting way is like heat to remove moisture and then cool.
Mhm,
So that's kind of an interesting way of doing it. So this could be a process in addition to just a product, like which is not
mhm.
great. I don't love that. Yeah.
Yeah, there we go. Look at that.
So I guess one lever, there's type of reaction, there's amount of humidity, right?
Yeah.
The more humid it is, the more
I
humidity and
wonder,
moisture.
so like a slight permutation. Well, and this is like the opposite. Um,
Yeah.
but to, just pull a vacuum, and that's, part of the
Oh,
freeze dry process, right? Because then your moisture boils off.
yeah.
At,
So,
you just change your it's the opposite of an Instapot, right? Where instead of having it be hot and high pressure, you have it cold and low pressure.
yeah. So opposite of Instapot, cold and low pressure. That's actually very interesting. I like that a lot. Now that could work. I mean, that I feel like could actually be a thing. Like
But
that's potentially really
and then
interesting.
there's also the lever of, why do we heat food? And it's to kill things, right?
Yeah.
And it's uh, by cooling things quickly, it doesn't really help in any way.
Unless you can get it past a certain point.
Yeah, but that's very cold.
Well, like a freezer, right? A freezer is 0,
Yeah, but
0
that's
degrees
not
Fahrenheit.
killing things.
Oh, it's just, you're right. It's
We've
preserving them
got
kind of in a
we've
way.
got food safe things, and then you freeze them, and then they're still food safe because they're food.
Yeah.
right? If you put raw meat in the freezer and then thaw it, please don't eat it without cooking it.
That's true. Yep. It preserves,
Yeah, it doesn't
it doesn't
sterilize.
sanitize. Yeah. Ah, that's an interesting point. I've learned a lot in this. Okay. Let's go to connections, right? So we've got our, wow, this is our machine learning model, folks. One of the suggested connections is there are no board games that make fun of work. Very closely related.
Yeah. Mhm.
I think there's not always a place you can drop things off for a friend to pick up is interesting. I think one of the challenges of that is keeping things cool in the summer. Like you don't want to drop off
Oh, yeah.
your pie and then yeah,
It's,
and then have it cool off. Like, and I think that's a problem with these Instacart and all this stuff is how do you keep things cool?
mhm. Another connection is the Stephen Johnson book. How we got to now? Is that the book?
You're right. You're right. That's a
Where
great
one
connection.
of
Yeah.
his you should
One of the ones is about cooling and ice and how
should put it in the brackets.
I will, but is it in
Okay.
there already?
I don't know.
That's what I didn't think it was in there. Yeah, it's not. So
Okay.
I'll clean that up.
Perfect.
But yeah, that's a fascinating story of how everything started just with literally taking ice blocks out of New England lakes and shipping it
Mhm.
down south. And then
Yeah.
slowly, I think it was actually a printing innovation that led
Yeah.
to air conditioning.
Carrier was working to dehumidify a printing room so the pages wouldn't get all bad.
Oh, that's an interesting point that we just talked about dehumidification as
Yep.
a way to cool. And
Yep.
that's, yeah. Yep. So I'm just finishing up this connection. So there's not always a place you can drop things off for a friend to pick up is related because cooling is one of the central challenges of like services like Instacart, which really could help us there. It's strange. It's much more environmentally friendly to do something like Instacart actually than it is to go and get your own groceries because it allows one person to carry the groceries of like 10 or 15 theoretically.
Yeah. And something we didn't talk about, is all these other places where we've been thinking a lot about we heat things up quickly, but we don't cool them, and all those things are food items, foodstuffs.
Exactly. Yep. Yep.
Um,
I feel like I'm kind of stuck
but
on that.
but peoples are also these things.
Yeah, like cooling people. Well, right now, isn't it? And I think it's in India right now. There's a heat wave
Yeah.
that
Mhm.
is brutal. I mean, it's
Yep.
just horrific. And yeah, you're right. This is a really big people problem.
Yeah, so then like a lot of that, like I'm guessing our connections we can connect. Yeah, I mean it's just like a more efficient air conditioner. Um, but then it's the roofs are um, absorb heat in the wrong time, you know, fans.
Yep, we have fans connected. Box fans are nice, but they're short.
Um, yeah.
Oh, the temperature being the same all the time. Our temperature is constant year round
Yep.
in our homes
Yep.
is actually a result of the partial solution of this problem.
Yep. Um, also, I'm not sure if this book is in there in Obsidian yet. But Palaces for People by Eric Kleinberg. He's a he's a prof at NYU, but his thesis, his PhD thesis was researching a Chicago heat wave. Um,
Oh, and In
and
the Heights is actually all about that, isn't it?
I don't know, I haven't read that.
It's a musical. That's what In the Heights
Okay.
is about a heat wave. Yeah.
Oh, also, yeah. No, there's lots of
Yeah, you're right though about heat waves. I mean, that's a huge problem that I don't think we always really understand, given our temperature always appears to be constant.
Yeah. Although he found, so he was searching, who survived well in that heat wave and who, like, which groups. And it was all about social infrastructure. It wasn't about, you know, race or socioeconomic class. It was, the social, like, there were certain neighborhoods where, people would go to the libraries and they had a much better survival rate. And then some places where, people didn't know each other, and those were the places that people would die in higher
Wow.
numbers.
Yeah, that reminds me of The Village Effect, which is a fascinating book as well. Susan Pinker, check that one out. All about relational connections. So,
Mhm.
and how that actually, when you talk about lifelong, how long you're going to live, that's one of the central things, is how well connected you are socially. Okay, let's do our stage ratings real quick. We have a minute left. So motivation,
0.
I'm gonna say 1. I think this is an interesting problem. I think this is a big lever that would unlock a lot. Speed to failure.
Because 0.
I think this is like a moonshot, kind of like Moderna,
Yeah, but
where
I'm
it's
not
like
sure it
this is,
gets you anywhere.
yeah, that's true. Like
So
it
then
doesn't
my
have a
impact
clear,
is a 0.
I think this is a 2 because like Moderna didn't know, like they took this moonshot to develop this new medical technique and it was unknown how it might be used. And then it
Yes,
just
but
so
they
happened that there
also
was,
had a lot of, things that they thought it could do.
that's true.
Right.
So I think this is a bud for
Yeah.
now.
Yes. I'm not
Yep.
going to say it's not, it's not lacking and it's
Like,
not promising.
yes. Yep. I agree.
You know, yeah.
All right.
Like I'd
So
say, yeah, never mind.
be on the lookout for the Frozone folks. Let us know if you've cracked the secret of cooling things quickly. Thank you for joining us.